What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Justin Shoemaker here, also known as the world's water boy.
Yeah, baby.
He's the CEO and founder of ClearWave Water Solutions, a veteran and trainer for business and sales leaders, teaching them how to lead and grow exponentially. And in today's episode, we'll cover leadership, sales, and communications topics. But before we get into the episode, Justin, glad to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hey, man, I'm trying to give everyone that high quality H2O, baby. That's it. Get away from that Gatorade, baby.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Or all the craziness that's in the water these days.
Yep, absolutely. But no, man, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm always super, I love talking to people. I love talking about business. And it's something I got into late in the game, but I think it's pretty cool because even though I got into it late in the game, I've been making some pretty quick strides in it. So I think it's good to talk about, especially for anyone that's interested in doing it. It's never too late,
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about the passion behind sales, because I know we've talked a little bit offline in previous conversations where, you were actually doing like videography, and then now you're in this water business, but you're also like acquiring businesses. So all this stuff is kind of just rapidly happening, but you also have this huge passion for sales. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it happened by accident, right? So I was in the Navy, and with my last duty station, I was protecting the Secretary of the Navy and Secretary of Defense. So naturally, I was getting ready to get out, and I just figured I'd go into a 3-letter agency or work for NCIS or work one of those protection type of jobs. Pays well, and just kind of what I've done my whole career. So it was a natural path. But I got out, COVID happened, and so all the federal hiring freezes were like, nope, you're not going to be, we're not going to be hiring anybody. So obviously, I didn't have any work. I didn't have any disability. I had no money coming in. And I didn't really know what to do. So a buddy of mine was actually in water treatment. And he said, hey, I know you're into fitness and health. And, I don't know if you know about how bad the water is out here, but this might be something you could do in the short term. So I kind of got into sales just out of desperation, to be honest. I didn't really know anything about it. It was pretty funny because my wife at the time was like, I don't want to be married to a salesman. Like, what? No, I don't want to do this. And in my mind at the time, I had a pretty negative view on salespeople. I think in general, I was like, well, it didn't seem like especially from what I was doing before, it seemed like a step down at the time. And I was like, okay, well, we need money. And I've always been pretty good at talking to people. I like talking to people. So let me just give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And my buddy was doing it, and I trusted my friend. So I figured he wouldn't lead me down the wrong path. And I got into water treatment, fell absolutely in love with it. I realized how bad the water was. And then my second month, I made $30,000 in sales. And I remember calling my manager. I think at that time, my best week was $13,000. I made $13,000 in 1 week. And I remember calling my manager, and I was like, is this fucking legal? like, what is this? And he's like, nah, man, you're just killing it. And I think so I've always just kind of been into things that are really difficult. And, during, like most people during COVID, I got really into day trading, actually before COVID happened. And I loved just like the ability to make money. And I loved the fact that what it was sales, it was kind of hard. And it was kind of like, it kind of reminded me of, back in the day, kind of like almost like playing the sport, right? Like you got to go in there, you got to win the game to get paid. And there was so much other things that you had to learn to be good at it, right? Like you learn how to speak, you learn how to use body language, you had to learn tonality, you had to learn how to handle objections. Like there's this massive world of like a skill that you could learn to get better at a thing, that if the better you got at that thing, the output of that was exponential. And I just saw the possibilities, and I was like, holy shit, like this is what I've been looking for my whole life. And for me, the fact that part of it came so easy, just like the talking part, it came so easy to me. I was like, oh, this is something that like I could really do. And I think that's rare for a lot of people. I mean, I had all my friends growing up. I mean, even with music, and I've been a music producer for 12 years. I've done all these things I'm really passionate about, but I never had like that innate skill at them. And with sales, it was like the one thing I kind of fell into. I was like, oh, I'm actually like pretty good at this just naturally. So I was like, well, fuck, if I actually try at this, I could grow. So I'm helped grow that water company exponentially. And then I got headhunted for a solar company in Virginia Beach. And this will segue into why I got into business scaling. And basically I told him, he called me up and said, hey, I want you to come help me build my startup. And I told him, like, listen, I'm about to get into management here. I'm doing good things here. I don't want it. No, I'll give you an office right away. I was like, And they were kind of stalling me at the other company. I was like, all right, fuck it, let me try it. Right. And a family friend of mine was working there, again, family friends. And he had been in solar for a long, long time. And he was telling me the benefits of solar. So came down here, and that became insane. I think that's probably the most I ever made. I think I made 60 grand in 2 weeks. Was like the most money I ever made. It was crazy. Now the CEO wasn't the best, to be fair, but he was doing some shady stuff with the sales. But what ended up happening is we ended up growing that from, I think when I got there doing 600K, and in 11 months, I grew that thing to 25 million. And after the CEO kind of ran it into the ground by doing a lot of shady shit, I was like, man, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I am building these companies for other people, making them all this money that they just go and embezzle anyway. And I know me, I generally care about the people I'm serving. I could do this way better. So fast forward to this year, I said, all right, I'm going all in, burning the boats, as David Goggins likes to say. I sold my house. Me and my wife moved down to Virginia Beach, and we started a water treatment company, because one thing I always, now as I've worked in two separate industries, is I might have made more money in solar at the time, but I hated it, right? Wasn't passionate about it. But I really loved water. And I think for any industry, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if there's a market for it, like do your market research and there's a need in a market and there's at least some sort of scale, if you're passionate about it, you'll go way further than just trying to chase the dollar, right? That's why I've seen, 1099 reps go from pest control to solar to water, back to solar, back to 5 different solar companies. So just try to chase that money, right? You'll actually find something they're passionate about. So I opened up the water company, feel super passionate about it. And, we've been growing that very quickly. We now serve the entire state of Virginia. So in 6 months, went from 0 to 400K, which is super nice. And I think part of that was me being able to build and scale a team. And because obviously you can't do it yourself, right? That's kind of the biggest, that's the biggest misnomer, right? CEOs, we always want to think we can do it ourselves, but it's not true. If you build a team, they'll do it for you, and they'll be happier, and you'll be happier because you're not taking everything on yourself. You're not killing yourself every single day, right? You have other people kind of in the fight with you. And so, that's where we've been at. And with that, I partnered with this young college kid who he was building his own company, and he's doing media and marketing, and I brought him under my wing, and he's really, really good at what he does. So he helped me build my social, and he's been managing all my social media, doing all my video content. I have him doing some Google ads for us, and he's actually certified by Google. So we decided to partner up, and we started with Shoemaker Syndicate, which the syndicate is almost like a holdco, where we have a bunch of different companies under it. But the idea is we are a turnkey service where if you hire us, my side, I teach how to scale, recruit, sell, build the business side. He does the media, the marketing, the advertising, manages all your social content, records everything for you, does all your ads for you. So for one payment, you get a digital marketing agency and a sales force, like a sales multiplier, which to me is a very good value proposition. So we've been doing that. We have a couple clients in that space. Obviously, it's brand new, so we're still growing that. But it's been really fun, man. I think it's. I wake up every day just excited to get after it. And to be fair, there's been a lot of lows. I mean, especially, I will say if you are trying to start your own business and you work somewhere else, I will say I know everyone says it's harder than you think it's going to be, but I misunderstood the mental taxation of just like the self-doubt you feel when it's your money on the line and there's no sales coming in for the first month, or it's slow, and just like the mental fucking hurdles you go through because you're like, oh, did I make a right decision? Like that doubt just seeps in. But
man. Yeah, dude, there's so much to dissect here. And I really want to go on that last point there that you talked about. I think that's such an important thing that so many don't think about. And for me, I'm on the other side of that right now. So I still have a full-time job as I build out this business. So I've kind of had where it's like, well, I've got the cushy income. I'm doing okay. I don't have to have this money from the side business. And so there's been times where I have let off the gas because I'm like, well, things suck. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to worry about it. And it's a fight to really stay in there. But then from your side, like you said, like it is brutal. And a lot of people don't think about that, how mentally taxing that is. And then how can you just continue to be excited? And actually had a friend that has done an event recently. And I mean, it's just so many things going on in his personal life, so many things not really going well in the business. And he did the event and he moved forward with it. And they had people talking about like, oh yeah, how can you say that's a successful event, all these things because of but they don't understand everything that's been going on in his life. And now that's somewhat of an excuse, but still, I mean, there were valid excuses for sure, but people, they just look at it and say, oh, you want to say that you're successful or you're doing well. And then here you are on social media being, Mr. or Mrs. Positive. And yet they don't see behind the scenes and all that mental stress and how you have to stay positive. And us being in Apex and everything, we're around these groups. Like, why would you pay to be in a group? And there's just so many things there. But I would like for you to dive into that a little bit and tell us about how you kind of work through that, or what are your, I'll call them coping mechanisms, if you will, to push through that mental fatigue.
I mean, the way I look at it, I mean, like, what else would you do? Right? Like, I mean, it's the price to pay for success. I mean, if you want to, I think people have it kind of fucked up that they think you should, like, that's a bad thing to have that, right? Like, yeah, it sucks, but it's necessary. Like, if anyone that's ever been to the gym and worked out understands that to get bigger and to get more fit, you have to strain your muscles, right? You have to go through some pain to get a good looking physique, which a lot of people don't want to do. That's why half the fucking United States is fucking fat, because people don't want to do that, right? It's a thing for business, right? Like, when I made that decision, one thing I found is, for me, having that safety net definitely is a hindrance, because when you get into those positions where you're just at your lowest low and it's dark and you're doubting yourself, well, you don't have an option to go back anymore, right? So for me, the biggest thing for me was like, well, this is what it's supposed to feel like, right? This is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what you have to go through to get there. And this point, every entrepreneur has been there, and somehow they've made it. And it's kind of, with experience, you start to figure out the very first time you get into that low and that you get that doubt, it feels unmanageable, and it does, right? And I'm not gonna pound my chest saying I'm the fucking best. And I remember the first time I had it, I was like laying on my couch, just stressed, like I just didn't know what to do, and I didn't really know at that time either. I didn't really know how to, like, okay, I have this big problem. How do I break it down into small pieces and attack it? But I just, took a deep breath. I went to the gym. I came back home and I said, okay, I'm just gonna try to talk to clients. I'm gonna try to get some leads. So I remember I cold calling to get a couple leads, and I actually called one of my old solar clients, and I was able to get one sale in. And that month, okay, I got a sale in. And then, after that month, it started picking back up, and, we're still here. And I think as you go through those hardships again and again, you realize it's just a moment in time, and it will pass, right? And the same thing when it's going really good. And I think that's the biggest thing too, is when it gets really, really good, you can't get high on your own supply, because just as high as it goes, it's going to come back down again. And if you're too high on your supply and it comes down again, it's like a crash that you're just gonna be like, fuck, what's going on? And then you might think something's going wrong. But that's how businesses work sometimes, right? Sometimes you have really good months, sometimes they go down a little bit. Obviously, over time, on a longer time horizon, you want to see exponential growth. But I think, and I'm really guilty at this, to be fair, is I always kind of look more at like the short term, when really I'm like, well, what are we doing long term? What's like our 1 year, 2 year outlook? Are we growing over this 1 year, 2 years? Great. Okay, we had a down month. Maybe like we did 12 deals and this month we did 7, just as an example. Well, that, for me, because I'm so competitive, I'm like, fuck, what's going on? But I was like, but wait, 4 months ago, we're only doing 1 or 2 deals. We're still exponential, So yeah, I think you just have to know that that's why most people fail. And to be honest, that's why I think most small businesses fail. I made this tweet. I don't think businesses fail. I really don't. I don't think 99% of small businesses fail. I think 99% of people fail.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people also go into entrepreneurship with, one, just they have this idea and they want to do it. 2, they've never actually worked under a business that's done this. Like, the only reason why I felt confident to do this is because I was basically running this guy's solar company, because he was out of the picture. I was his number 2 guy. He was gone. So I got to actually work as the CEO for about 7-8 months with 0 risk. I had no liability on the business, right? So I think, and I think when people get into this, they just don't know what's going on. They don't recruit the right partners, right? That's the other thing. Like for me, I'm not an operations guy. I hate operations. So I brought an operations guy on that's really, really good, who I met through the solar company, right? And I had these assets to bring over. And I think some people, the reason why they fail too, is they just go into it so fast with no support. They don't have anyone that they can rely on. They don't have anyone that can give them expertise that they may not have. And they get burnt out and they fail because they don't have the runway to do that. And the less amount of money you have invested, the shorter runway you have, the more talent you have around you to recoup that money, right? The bigger overhead, the faster you got to recoup that money. So I think that's the biggest issue. And I think for people that might want to start a business, like, let's say it's in sales, Well, if you're not working in sales, don't start the business yet. Go work in sales for a year or two and learn the business that you want to get into, right? There's plenty of opportunity out there for later down the line, but just go get it. And, to be fair, 4 out of every 5 millionaires work with somebody else anyway. So if your end goal really is money, and it's not because you actually want to be your own boss and run a business and deal with that fucking stress, then just go work for somebody else, be the top producer there, don't have any of the liability, and make a shit ton of money. Because I know right now, as of this podcast, there's probably some sales guys making way more money than I am. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Being a sales guy. I'm sure some of my sales guys right now are making more money than me, right? Because there's that weird curve until it equals out for the entrepreneur, because we have all the liability of the overhead and we play a long game. We don't get the lion's share until this thing is successful. And to be honest, you can't get through that mental fucking death trap of fucking doubt unless you generally really know you can't breathe doing anything else. And that was just where I was at. Like 10.5 years in the military, I was like, I'm so sick of being under someone's thumb. And then when I got into the civilian sector, I just saw how terrible these leaders were. I was like, I can't work for anybody else in the civilian sector. I just didn't have any options, right? Like it was mentally, I just couldn't do it. I was like, fuck, I just have to do it myself. Like I didn't have the option. Because that's the thing is, if that store company had probably worked out and, the CEO wasn't a douchebag and wasn't embezzling money, I probably would still be working there, right? If he was taking care of his clients, I probably would just still be there because I was a top producer making a ton of money, living a good life, and I was leading the team. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah. And man, entrepreneurship is definitely something that's over glorified. People don't look at the other side of it. They look at people that have been in business for 10, 20, 30 years. And now, they have the people in place. They have the systems and processes there. They're still distressed, but they can also go take a week or two off, and it's no big deal because they've got the people in place to run it. Now they are the visionary, or they should be the visionary at that point. And so they have to go lead so they can continue to grow and scale and everything. And most people don't think about that. They just think, oh, I'm just going to start making tons of money. No, you definitely aren't. And I actually experienced, we were talking about the highs and lows a couple months ago. And this was the first time when I realized, because everybody's like, oh yeah, it's back to zero on day one of the month. And I had like my biggest month ever. And the next month, I'm like, I was kind of like riding that high a little bit and wasn't too much, but I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And I wasn't, I guess riding it wasn't too much, but it was like, man, like this is awesome. And then I got back and I'm like, oh crap, I'm at zero again. Like this sucks. And that's when I realized that. And it's like, now it's been like every month, okay, I'm chasing it. And I've set up my priorities a little bit different. My goals when it comes to the income with the business and everything a little bit different, and how I'm saving money and stuff like that. But it is tough to look long term.
How have you changed it?
So I really just started focusing on, instead of like, hey, what am I making monthly? Because part of me is like for the exiting the full-time job to go into this. So rather than like, okay, look, I want to make like 10,000 a month because that would replace my income. I'm like, okay, I want to set aside like $50,000. So then I have like this savings. I was always like, oh yeah, I'll have some savings there. But now it's like, oh no, I'm going to be more intentional about that. And then of course I'm still watching on what I'm making monthly. And the target still is to have at least a 10K a month. Hopefully it'll be more than that, but we'll see. But I can go back, and then it's like when it's time to really have that conversation with my wife, like, hey, I've got $50,000 sitting here. That's a lot more solid ground to stand on than to say, hey, I'm making 10K a month. So that was kind of that shift there. Like, hey, instead of trying to go and reinvest completely like all the money and never have anything in savings, like let me go actually put some in savings and still invest some of it and everything, and focus on that and have that kind of that target instead of focusing on just bringing in money, so to say.
Yeah. And I think what you'll notice too is once you finally made that decision, that's where you'll see the growth.
Yeah. And I have been seeing, there's been a lot of changes happen and everything. So it's been pretty cool. So awesome. I want to go back real quick. You mentioned something about like, you didn't really think about going into sales. And what I noticed, it wasn't necessarily about the commission or lack of stable income. There seemed to be something else there of why you were a little bit hesitant to go into sales. So could you kind of go into that, and then how you got out of that hesitation?
Well, I mean, you think about it, right? Like, and this is definitely a misnomer, is, you think of salesmen are just kind of like a little sleazy, right? It seems like a sleazy profession. And that's probably because of, old media. And, I think most salespeople suck. So I think most of the people that you run into aren't that well trained, and they're not that great. So I think that's why most people have a bad outlook on sales. One of my things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change that persona, because it's completely changed my life. I wish I'd found this when I was 18. right? If I had done this instead of the Navy, I guarantee if I got into sales and didn't go into the military, get me wrong, I don't think I'd be the person I am without the military. So it's a kind of one of those things. But financially, if I had gotten into sales instead of the military, I would 100% be a decamillionaire by now.
Yeah.
Easy. It's just because it's a profession that, and I guess to go back to your question, that was my hesitation. And it wasn't until I got into water treatment and I saw that you're actually helping people. And I had a client of mine who had her daughter had psoriasis all up her body, and they were spending like $2 or $3K a month to try and get rid of it, going to doctors and all kinds of stuff. So I sold her a system of mine because, with a lot of the chemicals and pharmaceuticals in water, especially for some people, when you have high chlorine levels or even just the calcium, magnesium in the water, it can actually affect their skin. And a lot of people don't realize with hard water, the soaps that you use every single day, a little bit that gets left on your skin when you're done rinsing and showering, if you don't have a softener. So I sold them a really nice water filtration system for the whole home. Told them, hey, listen, I can't promise it's going to do, solve all your issues, but it has been shown to help with psoriasis, eczema, things like that. 4 months later, she calls me crying, completely healed. All of it was gone. Wow. It had high sensitivity to the stuff that was in the water. So I saw that. I was like, oh, wow. Like, my job is not to sell people. My job is to help people and give them a ton of value. Right. And if I do that, I make a lot of money. And I was like, this just seems too good to be true. I get to feel good about what I do and help people. And I get to make a ton of money doing it because it's 1099 commission. So it's kind of almost like a pseudo CEO situation. You take all the risk because you're not getting the salary. So when you actually provide value to the business, they pay you very well. And I was like, this is great. Right. And for me, I've always been performance based. Again, that's where I think the military helped me is I think a lot of people are scared to go into a 1099 job because they're like, oh, I'm not going to make any money. That's not true. You'll make so much more money than a salary unless you fucking suck. Right. If you're lazy, yeah, you're not going to make any money. And I think that's the problem is, 1099 is definitely not for everybody. And it's for people that don't want to make money because they don't want to work. And that's why I hate salaries. Like I hate when I see high performers taking a salary job because you're literally letting some company dictate your worth. And I don't care if it's 200, 300K. I mean, in sales, my best year, I think I made 500 grand, probably over that actually, that with all bonuses stuff included. Like, I don't know, like if you're a high performer, there's no reason you should be working a salary job.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with you with the sales thing. That was a struggle for me because I felt like, hey, I'm taking your money. And then I had to realize that, hey, look, I am providing a great service for people. I know people need this. I know the way that the speaking and helping myself get better at speaking has helped me and changed my life tremendously. So I know I can help other people. And so, finding that space that will help you. And it could be, I would hope that you would find especially if you go into sales, you're going to find something that you're passionate about, that you want to help people, but maybe it is about helping yourself. But I think you'll agree with this, that I wholeheartedly believe that if you go into a sales position or starting your own business and you are selling a product or service that benefits somebody, you're going to get more enjoyment out of that versus just making tons of money.
Oh yeah. And like, to be honest, if you are looking to join a company, definitely do your research. Like definitely look at the ownership, look who's actually running the business and do your due diligence. Look at them online. So that's a huge thing. If you go online and you see the company you're going to go work for doesn't have a good online presence, and I made this mistake, is I'm telling you, there's a reason why. Okay. If they don't care enough to take care of the online presence, and they really don't care about their clients that much. And I got to tell you, the worst feeling in the world is selling a bunch of people a product and the company drops the ball because you inadvertently feel like you let them down because they did trust you. And that's the thing is when you get into sales, people don't really buy into the company. They're buying into you. And you'll make some of the best friends from some of your clients that you deal with because you're in these people's homes a lot of times for 1 to 2 hours. You get to know them, you get to build all this rapport. And if you're in a good business, you get to help them. So you want to make sure that you actually are in a company that they do want to help them. So if I'm going to work for a business, I always ask about that. I'd say, hey, what is, how do you tailor this company to customer experience? Like, what is if a customer has an issue, what's the path to reconciliation? And if they can't give me clear answers on that, I'm not going to work there. Yeah. Because it's going to bite you in the ass long term. And even, let's say you're a narcissist and you hate people, right? Which I know they're out there, but it affects your commission as well because you don't get referrals, right? If people aren't happy, they're not going to refer people, which means, and that's the name of the game in any sales is referrals, right? That's how you make the most money. So if you're in a company that can't take care of people, well, then you're not going to get referrals. Yeah. And then you're going to be broke, right? And you're going to be in that salesperson cycle where you're just living paycheck to paycheck and you're always broke all the time.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And speaking of like building up people, having this rapport with them and everything, this really segues well into talking about the scaling and leadership.
Yeah.
And I know you're passionate about sales, but you're also passionate about leadership. And you mentioned this with your company, what you're doing and what you're helping other companies with is really helping build their teams. So how do you go about building those teams? Because like you mentioned earlier, there's so many leaders out there that are just terrible. They don't know. They really just get elevated into this position, and I'm forgetting the term that people use, but they get promoted past their skill level, and so now they're in this leadership position and they don't know how to lead. They've been a good operator, but they are a terrible leader. So how do you go about like leading and then helping other people learn how to lead?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, number one, I'd say know what you know and know what you don't. And I think I think when you get into a leadership position, especially if you're new to it, you feel like you have to know everything. And that's not the case. And that's where a lot of leaders fail, is they let their ego get in the way. And they feel like if someone under them is smarter than them, they bring better ideas. Like they feel like they got to know these things. If someone else knows it, like that's attacking their credibility as a leader. And that's just not true. Your job as a leader is just really a couple of things. Number one, you got to set a standard. Okay. One thing that I learned from the military, which is so true. So I'm actually writing a book, and I highlight this in my book. When I was stationed in Italy, we had I was in 3 divisions with 3 different leaders. So same people, but we had 3 different groups of leaders come in. And the first leader was really good. He had, set the standard, made sure everyone showed up on time, and was really friendly. But made sure we all looked good, right? The next leader that came in, but our performance was subpar, was the average, right? Then we had a leader that came in, and they were known as being just like a dick, like a hard ass. And they really weren't. But when they came in, I mean, they set really hard standards. I mean, it was, you show up 5 minutes early, boots all shine. Like they were over the top, like inspecting all your weapons, making sure your hats were, like everything was crazy, right? Double checking vehicle checkout sheets, double checking your patrol records, like everything, like it was crazy. Like I'm talking, was all about the performance. We were running drills like crazy, and everybody bitched and complained, right? I actually enjoyed it. And our division, our performance went through the roof. I mean, we were the top division in the entire command, right? Everyone was doing well. We were all getting promoted. They're really enforcing what we had to do, even outside of just our daily jobs. So things were going really, really well. And then they end up leaving, and we got a new batch of leaders in. And the new leaders, the third leaders, were like the cool leaders, right? Like they were super lax and super chill. They didn't really care. And performance went down. And it's funny because people still complained, but they complained even more. And they realized, oh, we actually liked what we had before. We liked that structure. So I think number one, what leaders need to do is they need to set that standard, right? Yes, you want to, you want to take care of your employees, and you want to be friendly to them, don't be a dick to them, but you need to make them reach a standard, okay? Because what's going to happen is, if you actually genuinely care about them, you want them to do better. You want them to succeed. You can't do that if you don't make them meet certain standards and criteria. And when they fuck up and they don't meet them, then you got to be the one to come down there out of love and say, hey, man, why are you fucking up? Like, what can we do to get you better? What can we do to get you to this standard, right? And then if you have someone that really doesn't want to meet there and they don't beat that standard, you got to cut them. Give them as much time as you can, give them that effort. But if they really just can't meet that standard that you set, cut them. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to get you a very powerful team. All right. You're going to have a bunch of killers. You're going to have a bunch of people that are high performers because you build the high performers and you make them meet that standard, and you recruit the people that are trainable and that want to actually get to that level. Right. That's number one. Number two, you got to be a man of your word. Okay. If you're a leader, you have to keep your word at all times. And you also need to make sure that if you're going to tell your people to do something, that they at least know you can do it as well. Right now, as you get bigger, it's a little bit harder to do this, but especially starting out, this is where it's the most important. And really, once it's starting out, that's where you need to make sure you do your best job, because the startup phase is where you build the foundation that the whole thing is going to sit upon anyway. So for me, for example, I work in an industry where we do door knocking, just as an example. I know there's a lot of those out there. It's very hard for me to get time now to do that, but if I do, I go out there and I crush it. Right. So last week I took 2 of my new guys out, went out there, and I set 5 appointments in 2 hours just to show them I still could. Right. And that's important, especially in the startup phases. if you're gonna have people cold calling, if you're gonna have people door knocking, like you need to show them that they can, that you can still do it. I think back to when Grant Cardone was first making a lot of his content, back in 2014. He has videos of him on YouTube. You can go look of him cold calling with his team, right? And that's the thing about leadership. That stuff never ends. You always need to make sure you're touching back with the troops and make sure that you understand that, hey, I'm still here. I've done this. That's how it got to where I'm at, right? The third thing is reinvestment into the people. And the people are your most valuable asset at the end of the day. So you need to make sure you reinvest them, whether it's with your time, with your money, or with some sort of an opportunity. So the biggest thing that will make your team scale is when they come on is make sure you give them an opportunity they can strive for, whether that's a long-term equity stake in your business, whether that's a management position with better pay, whatever it is, right? There should be something that your people can strive for. And you want to make sure you set firm metrics on those things, but people will work harder for an opportunity than they will a paycheck. That's just been proven. So, if my people understand that, hey, like right now we're expanding, I can really speak on this because we're doing it right now, but we're expanding. So I'm about to leave the Virginia Beach Hampton Roads office. So I told my team, I said, hey guys, listen, I need someone to step up and be the leader of this office. I need someone to run this. Who's going to do it? It goes to whoever earns it, right? Who's going to set the most appointments? Who's going to sell the most deals? Who's going to lead my team? And then whoever does is the leader, right? So that's how you get to see who actually rises to the top. And then always reward them, right? I always like to do positive reinforcement over negative reinforcement. And the biggest thing I will say is, and this is something I learned from the military that has served me very well in the civilian world, is you want to praise in public and you want to reprimand in private. Okay. The biggest thing to destroy your team is when you start dogging somebody in front of the entire team. Makes you look stupid and weak, and it doesn't help morale, right? You always want to overpraise in public, and then when people are messing up, you want to take them aside one-on-one. Okay. Because and just as like a way to get better performance, people have egos. And if you start berating people in front of the entire team, like they're going to get defensive. And even if you have a good point, and even if they did mess up, I'm telling you, like, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to cause resentment. So pull them to the side, tell them where they messed up. And then one thing that works out really well is I'll say, hey, listen, let's say they didn't give someone the right system, or they didn't do the inspection right. What I like to do is I like to empower them. I say, hey, listen, you messed this up. I want you to show me how you went wrong. And then we're going to work together with it, right? Instead of me telling them, hey, you fucked up doing this and this. Like, let's talk about what you could have done better. And I'm going to say, hey, great. So I want you to train the team next week. You lead the team and you train them how to do it. Why? Because if you've ever led or trained somebody, you understand something better once you've trained it. Number one, it forces them to go in and make sure they know what it is. But then two, it empowers them because now they're training the team. And it's not so much like, hey, you suck, I'm going to tell everybody in front of you. He's like, no, hey, you messed up. Go get better. Now train a team and get them better, right? Because if one person messes something up, I'm sure the rest of the team could too, right? So that's a big thing. And then being there for them, right? As the leader, you are going to be kind of daddy sometimes. You're going to be big brother. You're going to be the person that really they lean on. And one thing I got to say is you got to create the culture of success. And what that means is, I see a lot of CEOs that are just negative or shitty or fat and out of shape or just slobs. And, that doesn't create a really great environment for people to work in, right? You need to almost be seen as this figure that they want to aspire to be, right? I think some of the biggest leaders and the people I respected the most are the people that I admired. Like in my military career, the people I followed most are the ones I was like, man, I kind of want to have his attributes. Like I love the way he thinks, I love the way he acts, love his work ethic. I love how this person lives their life, right? That's why I want to be like that person. That's why I want to work hard for that person, right? So you need to be that person, right? Like if you're the leader, you need to be someone that they look as like, holy cow, this guy's really doing it. So if you're out of shape, you need to get in shape. Just that you got to be the guy they look at like, oh, look at this guy, right? You want to make sure you're not depending on what the culture is, but you want to make sure you're not, going out getting fucking loaded every night on fucking drugs and getting sloppy and getting picked up and they're coming to like pull you off the sidewalk and that kind of stuff, right? Like you want to make sure they know you're running this shit and that you got it all together. That's super important. That's why, you see some of these influencers, they get so much of a following when they get the nice cars and they get the nice gear. And to be fair, like, listen, if your business is doing well, I will say it's a great recruitment tool. Like if you can afford it, and this is, you got to know your means, but as the CEO, having a nice car, having a nice office space, make sure you dress really nice goes a long way. I recruited 3 people from my team, because at the time I had a brand new Audi RS5 that I bought, right? It was a gorgeous car, custom painted, everything was gorgeous. I pull in, people are like, yo, how'd you get this car? I'm like, well, this is how I did it. And then come work for me and I'll show you how to do it yourself. Right. So there is value to that. I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't waste money on these cars. I was like, listen, I like cars. So I like nice cars. I like nice watches. I'm a little bougie. I think I like nice things. I like to luxury travel. I like to have nice restaurants, right? That's just who I am. I like that stuff. So I'm going to buy that stuff. If I can afford it, I'm going to pay for it. And having that as part of like my culture, like, hey guys, this is what I enjoy. This is what I'm achieving. This is how you can get that too. And then the last thing I will say is understand your people's goals and desires. So every organization should either have it publicly posted or somewhere posted where you have their short-term, their midterm, or long-term goals. Short-term is the next 1 to 2 years, midterm, 4 to 5 years, long-term is like next 10 to 15 years, right? And you should have it posted somewhere where everyone can see. So we use Discord for our digital office. So I have all their goals in Discord. And the reason why that's important is what drives your employees is different than what drives you. Like I said, I know what I like. I know what drives me, but I know the people I work for, everyone's got different things. Some people just want to do well for their family. Some people want to get into real estate. Some people want to get into investments. Some people want to just acquire wealth and save it. Some people want a COO position, right? They want C-suite titles, right? Everyone has something different that they want. And what your job is to help them reach those goals as a leader. That's your job. You want to help them reach their goals. So what I do is I make sure those goals are there. So if they're not hitting them, I can hold them accountable to their own goals and say, hey, why aren't you hitting your short-term goals? What can we do? Where are we at? Every 2 months I go, hey, where are we guys at? Where are we at in your short-term goals? Where are we at in your midterm goals? Like how are we pacing to this? Oh, we're pacing good. Great. Let's keep going. You're not pacing well. Okay. What do we need to do to make sure what do I need to do to make sure that you can hit those goals? Right. And that shows, again, that's investment of time into your people, right? Where you care more about their goals than your own, and they'll work harder for you for it. Right. Because, and the thing is, you have to genuinely want them to get there. You have to genuinely help these people, right? You can't just put these things in place and think it's going to work. It won't. You have to genuinely care about your people. And this is one of the ways you do that. And what you'll notice is once you know their goals, you can structure your incentives in the business to fit their goals. So instead of saying, hey guys, first person to get 10 appointments gets $100, maybe you have a guy who really is into real estate, and let's say there's an Apex convention or an Apex thing coming up, and there's like a real estate guys talk about real estate, and you guys are gangsters. You can say, hey man, if you can get 15 deals by the end of the month, I'm going to pay for you to go to this real estate conference and you can learn more about real estate. They'll work way harder for that than just some arbitrary incentive you give out, right? And I guess where a lot of people get it wrong. They try to make it too about themselves or what's work. Like you've got to map your incentive structure, everything you do to your people.
Yeah, everybody wants to make a cookie cutter. And then with that too, I thought about, of course, from a communication perspective, if you can tell their goals are all around their family, stuff like that, that's something you go talk to them about. You can talk about their family. Hey, how's the family doing? Because they want to talk about that. Somebody else that's all about investments, they're probably more business oriented. So you go in, hey man, how's business stuff going? How's investing going? There's these conversations that you can go into with them to connect with them. And as a leader, we have to be a great communicator and connect with the people we lead. And if we can't connect, I mean, that's where that disconnect comes in, and why people end up leaving companies. People don't leave companies because most people don't. I feel like the more and more it seems like people are leaving because they just don't want to work. But more people leave a company because of a terrible leader, because there's no vision within the company. They don't see themselves there long term. So they're trying to find that greener grass on the other side rather than staring where they're at. And so really having that vision, and as you talked about all those different aspects that a leader needs, I completely agree with you on those things. I noticed vision was like really just the core thing of all of that. Vision, vision, vision. If you don't have vision for your company, if you don't have vision for your employees, they're not going to stay there. They're not going to want to be a part of that. And then really even your clients coming in, like going back to what you talked about being the salesperson, you are that face. As a small business owner, we are the face of the company. If people can't see the vision of us going in, but beyond like, hey, we're just trying to sell you this one time, they want to see that, hey, we're trying to grow, and they want to be behind somebody, almost kind of like that underdog, like, oh, that's cool. If I can help them out and be a part of their journey to get to where they want to go. So
people love that, man. When you went to a home and you're like, hey, we're growing a business, like, oh, I want to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So having that vision is so important. And Justin, this has been all really cool, but I want us to get to our last question here, which is, if you only had one message to share for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
Live your life on your own terms, man. And don't live it by anybody else's. That'd be it. Right. Like if you want to do something, just do it. If you have something you want to do, just do it. Because at the end of the day, it all goes to zero. So whether you start a business and you fail, you're going to die at some point, right? We're all going to die. So everything we do really does not matter that much, right? It does not, right? Everyone's going to forget about us eventually. It doesn't matter how big of a business you build, right? You're going to be forgotten about. I mean, I think Alex Hormozy said it the best. Think about Betty White, right? She's probably the most successful person in the world. Think about what she's accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
No one talks about her anymore.
Yep.
Every now and again, right? But she was huge.
Yeah.
Think about us, right? So, and I think that's a really cool perspective, and that's one I've kind of adopted of just like, hey, it doesn't really matter. So why not go for the thing you want to go for, right? Who cares what your parents think? If you want to do something, go do it. Who cares, right? Yeah, and if you fucking fail at it, who cares? At least you can say you tried it. You know, that's the biggest thing. If you can at least do it, just try it, man, because it does not matter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't.
I like it, man. And you're exactly right. That's what I try and do for myself, is just live my life to the fullest. Just do what I'm set out to do. Of course, within certain constraints. Obviously, I've got a family I got to take care of and stuff too, but definitely trying to live out as much as I can and get there along the way. But it's about living life without regrets. So I really like that.
Man.
And yeah, Justin, this has been awesome. If people want to follow you, get to know more about you, learn about sales and business and leadership from you, where's the best place for them to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all over. So TikTok and Instagram are probably my main two platforms. So it's JS_shoes with a Z underscore on Instagram. And then I think it's Justin_Shoemaker on TikTok. But if you find me, I'm the water boy. I'm all over. Yeah.
Nice. Well, y'all heard from the water boy today. Make sure that you like and subscribe to us here on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe on the podcast platform that you are listening to this on, and go out there and crush a day, and make sure that you share your message, because your message is important.
Let's get it.